The coffee had lost its heat 23 minutes ago, but Maya Richardson kept both hands wrapped around the ceramic mug anyway. It was something to hold on to, something to do with her restless fingers while she waited for a man who clearly had better things to do than show up on time, or show up at all. The rain created a rhythmic percussion against the tall windows of Harbor Lights Cafe, each drop catching the soft glow of vintage pendant lights that hung from the exposed ceiling beams. Maya sat tucked into her preferred corner table, the one she always chose when she came here alone to work on weekends, and wondered, not for the first time that evening, what temporary madness had convinced her to say yes to this disaster waiting to happen. Jasmine. That's what had convinced her. Jasmine Powell, with her relentless optimism and her complete inability to accept that some people were perfectly content with their own company. He's a surgeon, Maya. Pediatric cardiology. Smart, accomplished, and yes, he's a single dad. But hear me out. Hard pass on single dad, Maya had interrupted, shaking her head firmly. But Jasmine had steamrolled right over her objection, like she steamrolled through everything in life. You're 34, not dead, one dinner. If it's awful, I'll never set you up again. I promise. Jasmine had broken approximately 17 promises in the decade they'd been friends, and Maya knew this wouldn't be the last matchmaking attempt. But she'd agreed because saying no would have required explaining why she'd rather spend her Wednesday evening reviewing case files in her silent apartment. And that conversation always led to places Maya refused to go. So here she sat, wearing the emerald wrap dress that Jasmine had insisted showed you're making an effort without trying too hard, nursing what had now officially crossed into ice-cold territory, and checking her watch for what felt like the 100th time. 7:47 p.m., 17 minutes late. No courtesy text, no apologetic phone call. Maya's professional instincts, sharpened by years of depositions in courtroom strategy, told her that lateness without communication signaled one of two things: arrogance or chaos. Neither particularly inspired confidence. The cafe hummed with quiet conversation around her. A young couple 3 tables over were sharing a slice of red velvet cake, feeding each other bites with the kind of unconscious affection that made Maya's chest feel tight. An elderly man sat by the window with a worn paperback, perfectly at peace in his solitude. That's what I should be, Maya thought. Content. Self-sufficient, not sitting here performing this elaborate theater of availability. Her phone buzzed. Jasmine, naturally. Well, is he gorgeous? Are you already in love? Should I start shopping for a bridesmaid dress? Maya typed back. He's not here yet. 3 dots appeared instantly. Give him time. You know how traffic gets in this rain. Maya didn't respond. She took another sip of cold coffee and let her gaze drift to the rain-streaked window, watching the streetlights blur into watercolor smears through the glass. 2 years. It had been 2 years since Marcus walked out, citing her emotional walls and his paralegal's genuine warmth. The divorce had been finalized 18 months ago, quick and efficient, like everything else in Maya's life. She'd thrown herself into her work at Morrison & Associates with the kind of laser focus that earned her junior partner at 33 and a reputation as the attorney you wanted when winning wasn't optional, but mandatory. Her personal life, meanwhile, had withered into a series of declined invitations and increasingly creative excuses. She was fine with that, really. The last thing she needed was another man who would eventually decide she was too much work and not enough softness. 7:49 p.m. 19 minutes late. Maya reached for her purse, mentally composing a face-saving text to Jasmine about being stood up when the cafe door swung open. A gust of rain-scented November air swept inside, carrying with it the gentle chime of the bell above the entrance. Maya glanced up reflexively, expecting to see a harried man in a coat, probably checking his phone and scanning the space for his blind date. Instead, she saw a little girl. The child couldn't have been older than 5, with honey blonde curls pulled back with a sparkly headband and wearing a navy velvet dress that seemed far too fancy for a Wednesday evening. She clutched a worn stuffed elephant against her chest, its gray fabric loved nearly threadbare. Maya watched, confused, as the little girl's patent leather shoes clicked purposefully across the hardwood floor. Her eyes, startlingly blue, almost luminous, swept across the cafe with the kind of determination that seemed far too adult for someone so small. The girl's gaze moved past the couple with their cake, past the old man with his book, and landed directly on Maya. Recognition flashed across the child's face, immediate and unmistakable. And then she walked straight toward Maya's table, the elephant tucked under one arm, moving with the focused determination of someone on a very important mission. Maya's heart began to race. She looked around the cafe for a frantic parent, a babysitter, anyone who might be responsible for this child. But the girl was utterly, impossibly alone. The child stopped at Maya's table, tilted her head slightly, and spoke with the careful precision of someone who had rehearsed this exact moment. "My dad's sorry he can't make it." Before we continue with this incredible story, I'd love it if you could hit that subscribe button. Stories like this one take time and heart to create, and your support means everything. Also, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. I love knowing where my viewers are tuning in from around the world. Now, let's get back to Maya and this surprising little visitor. Maya stared at the child, her legal mind immediately cataloging the impossibilities of this situation. A 5-year-old, alone, in a cafe, at nearly 8 o'clock on a rainy Wednesday. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," Maya said, keeping her voice gentle despite her rising alarm. "Where are your parents? Where's your dad?" "At the hospital. He's fixing a little boy's heart." The girl said this matter-of-factly, as if fathers performing cardiac surgery was the most normal explanation in the world. "He was supposed to come see you, but the surgery took longer than he thought." Maya's mind raced. "And how did you get here?" "Uber." The girl said it with such casual confidence that Maya almost didn't process what she'd heard. "You took an Uber? By yourself?" The child nodded solemnly. "I used Daddy's phone. He doesn't know I know his password, but I watched him type it lots of times. It's my birthday backwards. Dear God." "Okay." Maya took a slow breath, trying to maintain her composure. "What's your name, honey?" "Sophie. Sophie Mitchell." The girl set her elephant on the table between them with great care. "This is Buttons. He's been with me since I was born. Are you Miss Maya?" "You look like how Daddy described you. I am Maya." She extended her hand automatically, and Sophie shook it with surprising firmness for someone whose hand was smaller than Maya's palm. "Sophie, does your dad know you're here?" The little girl's confidence wavered slightly. "Not exactly, but he really wanted to meet you, and I heard him tell Miss Jasmine that he might have to cancel because of work. And I didn't want him to be alone forever, so I thought, if I came and told you he was sorry, maybe you wouldn't be mad." Maya felt something crack in her chest. This brave, terrifying, impossibly sweet child had risked everything, her safety, her father's trust, everything just to keep her father's date from falling apart. Sophie, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Maya leaned forward, making sure she had the girl's full attention. What you did was very dangerous. You should never, ever get into a car with someone you don't know. Even an Uber. Do you understand? Sophie's eyes filled with tears. Are you mad at me? I'm not mad. I'm worried. There are a lot of people who might hurt children, and your dad would be devastated if something happened to you. Maya softened her tone. But you're safe now, and that's what matters. We need to call your dad right away. He won't answer. When he's in surgery, his phone is in his locker. Sophie swiped at her eyes with the back of her hand. But Miss Chen will answer. She's my nanny. She was sleeping on the couch when I left. Does Miss Chen know you left? Sophie bit her lip. I left her a note on the refrigerator, with a smiley face. Maya pinched the bridge of her nose. Somewhere in the city, a nanny was probably waking up to a note and losing her mind. She pulled out her phone. What's Miss Chen's number? I don't know. It's in Daddy's phone. Of course it was. Maya tried to think through her options. She could call the police, but the thought of watching officers take Sophie away to Child Protective Services while they tracked down her father made Maya feel physically ill. No, she'd wait. Surgeons couldn't operate forever. He'd finish eventually. Okay, Maya said, making a decision that probably defied all logic and common sense. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to sit right here with me, and we're going to wait for your dad together. Deal? Sophie's face transformed with relief and joy. Deal. Andre, the barista who always remembered Maya's usual order, appeared at their table with concerned curiosity written all over his face. He'd clearly been watching this bizarre interaction unfold. Everything okay here, Maya? It's complicated, Maya said with a tight smile. Could we get a hot chocolate for Sophie? With extra whipped cream? And marshmallows? Sophie asked hopefully. And marshmallows, Maya confirmed. Andre nodded, his expression saying he had questions but knew better than to ask them right now. Coming right up. When he left, Maya pulled out her phone and tried the number Jasmine had given her for David Mitchell. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. Dr. Mitchell, this is Maya Richardson. Your daughter Sophie is with me at Harbor Lights Cafe. She's completely safe and unharmed, but you need to call me immediately. She left her number and hung up, already composing the text message she'd send Jasmine demanding to know why her friend hadn't mentioned that Sophie Mitchell had apparently inherited her father's flair for dramatic timing. Sophie was watching her with those impossibly blue eyes. Are you really a lawyer? Daddy said you help people when they have big problems. I am. I work with contracts mostly, making sure companies keep their promises to each other. That sounds important. Sophie picked up buttons, smoothing down his worn ears. Do you like helping people? I do. Most of the time. Daddy likes helping people too. That's why he fixes kids' hearts. Sometimes he comes home really tired, but he always says it's worth it when the kids get better. Sophie's expression grew serious. Sometimes he comes home really sad too, though, when he can't fix them. Maya felt her throat tighten. She'd prepared for awkward small talk with a surgeon, not a profound conversation with his 5-year-old about the weight of saving lives. Andre returned with the hot chocolate, topped with a mountain of whipped cream and a handful of mini marshmallows. Sophie's eyes went wide. This is the best hot chocolate I've ever seen, she breathed. Andre makes the best hot chocolate in the city, Maya said. It's his superpower. Sophie took a careful sip, got whipped cream on her nose, and giggled. The sound was so pure, so genuinely delighted, that Maya found herself smiling, actually smiling. Not the professional smile she'd perfected for client meetings, but something real. "Can I ask you something?" Sophie said, licking whipped cream off her upper lip. "Of course. Do you ever get lonely?" The question hit Maya like a subpoena she hadn't seen coming. She looked at this small, brave girl who was clearly carrying worries far too heavy for someone her age, and found she couldn't lie. "Yes," Maya admitted quietly. "Sometimes I do." Sophie nodded, as if this confirmed something she'd suspected. "Daddy gets lonely too. I hear him at night sometimes. He goes into Mommy's old room and sits in the dark. He doesn't know I know." Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. "I pretend Mommy's just on a really long trip, like she went to Paris or something fancy. But I know that's not true. I'm 5 now. I understand." Maya's vision blurred slightly. She blinked hard, refusing to cry in front of this child who was already dealing with more than anyone should have to at 5 years old. "I'm very sorry about your mommy, Sophie. Thank you. It's been..." Sophie paused, counting on her fingers. 1 year, 6 months, and 11 days. I keep track, because Daddy sometimes forgets to count. He gets sad when he counts. Maya reached across the table and took Sophie's small hand in hers. "You know what? It's okay to be sad sometimes. Even daddies need to be sad. It doesn't mean he's not okay. But if he had someone nice, maybe he wouldn't have to be so sad all by himself." Sophie looked up at Maya with heartbreaking hope. "You're nice. I can tell. Maybe you could help him not be lonely, and he could help you not be lonely. And then maybe our house wouldn't be so quiet anymore." "Oh, sweetheart." Maya squeezed her hand gently. "That's not your job. Your job is to be 5, to play and learn, and let the grown-ups worry about grown-up things. But we're a team. Just me and Daddy. Teams help each other." Before Maya could respond, her phone rang. An unknown number. Her heart leaped. "Hello? Miss Richardson? This is Helen Chen. I am Dr. Mitchell's nanny." The woman's voice shook with barely contained panic. Please tell me Sophie is with you. I found the note. I have been calling everyone. I cannot find her." "She's here. She's safe. We're at Harbor Lights Cafe on Pearson Street." "Oh, thank God. Thank God." Maya could hear Mrs. Chen's relief pouring through the phone. "I come right now. 10 minutes. Please. You keep her there." "Of course, Mrs. Chen. How did you get my number?" "Miss Jasmine. I called Dr. Mitchell many times. No answer. So I call Miss Jasmine because she arranged the date, and she give me your number. I come now." "We'll be here." Maya hung up and looked at Sophie, who had gone very still, her hot chocolate forgotten. "Miss Chen is coming?" Sophie asked in a small voice. "Yes, sweetheart. She's very worried about you." "Is she mad?" "She's relieved. There's a difference." Maya paused. "Sophie, promise me you'll never do something like this again." "I promise." Sophie's lower lip trembled. "Will you still wait for Daddy, even after I leave?" Maya looked at this brave, lonely, impossibly sweet child who'd risked everything just to help her father smile again, and found she couldn't say no. "I'll wait," Maya said softly. Sophie's smile could have lit up the entire city. I hope you're enjoying this story so far. If you are, please take a moment to leave a comment with your rating out of 10. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. You'll get notified when I post the next beautiful story. Trust me, You don't want to miss what happens next. Mrs. Chen arrived in 8 minutes, not 10, bursting through the cafe door like a small hurricane in a cardigan and comfortable shoes. She was perhaps in her mid-60s, with short silver hair and eyes that went from frantic to flooded with relief the instant she spotted Sophie. Sophie, oh my sweet girl. Mrs. Chen rushed over, pulling the child into a fierce hug that lifted her clean off the seat. You cannot do this! You scare me so much! I wake up. You are gone. Just note on refrigerator. I'm sorry, Miss Chen, Sophie said, her voice muffled against the nanny's shoulder. I didn't mean to scare you. Mrs. Chen pulled back, her hands trembling slightly as she checked Sophie over for injuries. You are okay? Nobody hurt you? I'm fine. Miss Maya took care of me. Mrs. Chen turned to Maya, and the gratitude in her eyes was almost painful to witness. She grasped Maya's hands in both of hers. Thank you. Thank you so much. You are a very good person. Very kind. I don't know what I would do if something happened to Sophie. I'm just glad she's safe, Maya said, meaning every word. Mrs. Chen turned back to Sophie, her expression shifting to the particular kind of sternness that only people who deeply love children can manage. We go home now. And tomorrow, when your daddy comes home, we have very serious talk about why this was wrong. Sophie's face crumpled with worry. But Daddy doesn't know yet. What if he thinks Miss Maya got mad and left? What if he doesn't come? Sophie, I told you I'd wait, Maya said gently. But what if? The cafe door opened again, this time with enough force that the bell's chime turned into an alarmed jangle. A man stood in the doorway, surgical scrubs visible beneath an unbuttoned rain-soaked jacket, dark blonde hair disheveled, his face carved with exhaustion and barely contained panic. His eyes, the same impossible blue as Sophie's, swept the cafe with desperate urgency until they landed on the small figure in Mrs. Chen's arms. Sophie. The single word came out rough, scraped raw, with relief and fear, and something that might have been fury. David Mitchell crossed the cafe in 4 long strides, and Mrs. Chen stepped back, letting him reach his daughter. He dropped to his knees in front of the table, bringing himself to Sophie's eye level. For a moment, he just stared at her, his hands hovering as if afraid she might disappear. Then he pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly Maya could see his shoulders shaking. You're okay, he whispered into her hair, his voice cracking. You're okay. You're okay. I'm sorry, Daddy, Sophie said, her own voice small and scared. I'm really, really sorry. David pulled back just enough to look at her face, and Maya watched his expression cycle through a dozen emotions in seconds. Relief, anger, confusion, love so fierce it bordered on violent. What were you thinking? His voice cracked again. Do you have any idea, Sophie? You can't just leave. You can't take an Uber by yourself. You can't. He stopped, swallowed hard. You scared me so much. She's not strange, Sophie interrupted. She's Miss Maya. She's nice. She gave me hot chocolate with marshmallows, and she waited with me. And Daddy? She's really, really nice. That's when David seemed to remember that other people existed. His gaze shifted to Maya, and the impact of his full attention was startling, sharp intelligence, bone-deep exhaustion, and underneath it all, a vulnerability he probably didn't realize he was showing. Maya stood, extending her hand, on instinct. Maya Richardson. He stared at her outstretched hand for a beat too long, as if his brain was still catching up to reality, then took it. His palm was warm, his grip firm despite the tremor running through him. David Mitchell. He released her hand and ran his own through his already disheveled hair. I don't even know where to start. I am so incredibly sorry. This should never have happened. The surgery ran longer than expected. My phone was in my locker, and I didn't even know she was gone until Mrs. Chen called the hospital. He stopped himself. There's no excuse. I'm sorry you got dragged into this. Maya looked at him, really looked. Jasmine had said he was handsome, but that word didn't capture it. David Mitchell was attractive in the way people were when they were too exhausted to care about appearances, when whatever polish they usually wore had been stripped away by crisis. His eyes were bloodshot, probably from hours under surgical lights. There was what looked like coffee stain on his scrubs. His jaw was shadowed with stubble that suggested he'd been awake far too long. And underneath all of that, Maya saw what Sophie had seen, a good man barely holding himself together. You don't need to apologize, Maya said quietly. She's safe. That's what matters. That's not all I need to apologize for. David's laugh was bitter, self-directed. Jasmine set this up 3 weeks ago, and I almost canceled twice. Then today happened, and I thought Mrs. Chen would tell you I couldn't make it. I tried to call from the hospital, but the surgery had complications. And by the time I got out, he shook his head. This is definitely not how blind dates are supposed to go. No, Maya agreed, a smile tugging at her mouth despite everything. It really isn't. David looked down at Sophie, who was watching him with an expression that managed to be both contrite and hopeful. Why? He asked his daughter, and Maya heard years of questions in that single word. Sophie's lower lip trembled. Because you're sad all the time. And I thought if you met her, if you met Miss Maya, maybe you'd smile again, like you used to before Mommy left. The words landed like a physical blow. Maya saw it in the way David's entire body flinched, in the way he closed his eyes for a long moment before opening them again. Oh, sweetheart. His voice was wrecked. That's not your job. Making me happy isn't your responsibility. But we're a team, Sophie insisted, tears spilling over now. You said we're a team, and teams help each other. I just wanted to help, Daddy. I just wanted you to be happy again. David pulled her close again, pressing his face into her hair, and Maya had to look away from the intimacy of their grief. It felt like witnessing something too personal, too raw. When David spoke again, his voice was steadier, though Maya could hear the effort it took. We are a team, the best team, but that means we talk to each other. Okay? If you're worried about me, you tell me. You don't put yourself in danger, ever. Do you understand? End quote. Sophie nodded, still crying. I'm sorry, Daddy. I know you are. He wiped her tears with his thumbs, gentle and practiced. And we're going to talk about this more at home. A long talk. But right now, I need you to promise me you'll never do anything like this again. I promise. Sophie sniffled, then looked at Maya. But does she have to leave, Daddy? Miss Maya waited for you. She said she'd wait. Maya felt 3 pairs of eyes turn to her. David's exhausted and uncertain. Mrs. Chen's curious. Sophie's pleading. You waited? David asked, his voice dropping low enough that only she could hear it. Even after all this? I did. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or the beginning of hope. I don't deserve that kind of patience. Maybe not, Maya said, surprising herself with her honesty. But Sophie does, and she seems to think very highly of you despite tonight's chaos. David's laugh was soft, genuine this time. She has terrible judgment. Actually, I think her judgment might be better than both of ours. They held each other's gaze for a moment that stretched longer than it should have, long enough for Mrs. Chen to clear her throat meaningfully. Mr. David, the nanny said, already gathering Sophie's elephant. I take Sophie home now. Bath time, then bed. School tomorrow. You stay. You talk to nice lady who wait for you. Mrs. Chen. I can't ask. You don't ask. I tell. Mrs. Chen fixed him with a look that was clearly non-negotiable. You owe her very nice conversation at least. An apology dinner. Sophie looked between her father and Maya, clearly torn between obedience and wanting to see what happened next. I'll be home in an hour, David promised. And then, we'll talk. Deal? Deal. Sophie allowed herself to be guided toward the door, but she turned back one last time. Bye, Miss Maya. Thank you for taking care of me. Bye, sweetheart. Be good. And then they were gone, the cafe door closing behind them with a soft chime that sounded too cheerful for the weight of the moment. Maya and David stood in silence, the space between them suddenly loaded with everything that had happened and everything that hadn't been said. David slid into the seat across from her, the space Sophie had occupied, and ran both hands over his face. I genuinely have no idea what to say right now. That makes two of us. He looked up at her, a ghost of a smile playing at his mouth. You know what the worst part is? I had this whole thing planned. I was going to be professional and charming. Maybe make you forget that I tried to cancel twice. And instead, my daughter just orchestrated possibly the most disastrous first date in human history. I don't know, Maya said, feeling her own smile emerge. I once had a date who brought his mother without telling me. She spent the entire evening critiquing my career choices. David's eyebrows rose. You're making that up to make me feel better. I absolutely am not. Marcus's mother had very strong opinions about women in law. He laughed. Then, a real laugh that transformed his exhausted face into something warmer, younger. Okay, maybe this isn't the worst first date in history. Top 5, though, Maya said. Easily. Andre appeared with fresh coffee for both of them, decaf for David, which he accepted gratefully, and a knowing look that suggested he'd been following the entire drama with keen interest. When they were alone again, David wrapped his hands around the mug and stared into it as if it might contain answers. I should probably tell you that Jasmine set this up as a favor, he said quietly. I didn't ask for it. After my wife died, everyone decided I needed to start putting myself out there, as if grief has an expiration date. How long has it been? Maya asked gently. 18 months and 11 days. Sophie counts. His voice went rough. She counts everything. Days, weeks, months. Like if she keeps track, somehow it'll make sense. Does it make sense? No. It really doesn't. Now. 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 Maya took a sip of her coffee. For what it's worth, I don't think grief has an expiration date. I think it just changes shape, becomes something you carry differently. David looked at her. Really looked. And she saw the moment he realized. She wasn't just being polite. You've lost someone. My marriage. 2 years ago. Maya met his eyes. which I realize isn't the same as loss is loss, David interrupted quietly. Different kinds, different weights, but loss all the same. And there it was, that recognition, that sense of two people who'd been broken in different ways finding unexpected common ground. Jasmine mentioned you're a lawyer, David said, clearly trying to shift to safer territory. Corporate law? Contract litigation mostly. Some intellectual property cases. Nothing as noble as saving children's lives. Nothing as noble as making sure companies don't destroy each other. David paused. The world needs both. Actually, he stopped, a strange expression crossing his face. Maya Richardson, you handled the Patterson medical malpractice case about 2 years ago, didn't you? Maya's stomach dropped. My wife died because of medical negligence. The words hung in the air between them, sharp and terrible. Different hospital, different circumstances, but I followed your case in the news. His voice steadied, his eyes intense. You got those families justice. You held Patterson accountable. I wanted to send you a letter thanking you, but I couldn't. It felt too close, too raw. David, you did good work, Maya. Important work. He held her gaze. It mattered. It still matters. Maya felt something lodge in her throat. She'd won that case, collected her bonus, added it to her win column, and moved on. She'd never thought about the real people behind it, the ones who'd lost mothers, wives, daughters to negligence. She'd never imagined it might matter to someone like David Mitchell. Thank you, she managed, for telling me that. They sat in silence for a moment, the cafe settling into its evening rhythm around them. So, David said finally, a rueful smile on his face, this has been the strangest, most emotionally exhausting evening I've had in months. Which is saying something considering my baseline. He met her eyes. Would you possibly, against all logic and reason, be willing to try this again? Properly this time. No emergency surgeries, no wayward children, just dinner and conversation. Maya knew what she should say. This situation had red flags everywhere. A widower, clearly, still grieving. A precocious child with abandonment issues, complications that would make any rational person run. But then she thought about Sophie asking if she ever got lonely. She thought about how it felt to laugh genuinely for the first time in months. She thought about David's exhausted eyes and the way he'd held his daughter like she was the only thing keeping him anchored to earth. She thought about how tired she was of being safe. Yes, Maya said. I'd like that. David's smile was slow, surprised. Really? But fair warning, I'm difficult, emotionally guarded, and married to my work. Ask my ex-husband. Well, I'm a disaster who nearly missed our date because I was literally holding a child's heart in my hands. My daughter apparently has a future in espionage, and I come with approximately 17 tons of emotional baggage, so I'd say we're even. Maya laughed, and it felt like something unlocking in her chest. When? She asked. This Saturday? I'll make sure my surgeries are scheduled around it, and I'll have Mrs. Chen on high alert with Sophie. Saturday works. He pulled out his phone, finally recovered from his locker, and they exchanged numbers. His hand brushed hers as he handed back her phone, and Maya felt the contact like static electricity. I should go, David said, though he didn't move immediately. Mrs. Chen is probably giving Sophie the lecture of her life, and I need to follow up with the consequences portion. Not too harsh, Maya said. She was just trying to help. Not too harsh, Maya said. I know. But she also scared 10 years off my life. So we're going to have a very serious conversation about boundaries." He stood, then hesitated. "Maya?" "Yes, thank you for staying with her, for not calling the police or child services, for just being kind when you had every right to be furious. She's a good kid, David. You should be proud." "I am. Terrified, but proud." He paused again. "See you Saturday?" Saturday. He left with one last smile, and Maya watched him go, feeling like the evening had tilted her entire world slightly off its axis. Andre came by to collect the empty mugs. That was something else. You have no idea. That little girl really got to you, didn't she? Maya thought about Sophie's hopeful eyes, her fierce love for her father, her terrible bravery. "Yeah," she admitted. "Yeah, she really did." She gathered her things and walked out into the rain, which had softened to a gentle mist. Her phone buzzed as she unlocked her car. A text from an unknown number. "This is Sophie. Miss Chen is helping me type. Thank you for waiting for my daddy. I knew you were nice." Below it, another text. This time from David. I didn't tell her to send that, but I'm not sorry she did. Maya sat in her car, rain pattering softly on the roof, and smiled at her phone like a teenager. Maybe, she thought, safe was overrated. If you're still with me, I'd love to hear what you think so far. Drop a quick rating in the comments. 1 to 10. How are we doing? And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Now, let's see what happens on that second first date. Saturday arrived with the kind of crisp November weather that made everything feel possible. Maya stood in front of her closet for an embarrassing amount of time, 20 minutes for someone who'd argued cases before federal judges without breaking a sweat, trying to decide what to wear to dinner with a widowed surgeon and his matchmaking 5-year-old. She settled on a deep burgundy dress that Jasmine had bought her last Christmas, the one she'd claimed was too fancy and had never worn. Tonight felt like the right occasion. Her phone buzzed as she was applying lipstick. Still on for 7? Fair warning, Sophie made me promise to be a gentleman, and Mrs. Chen gave me a lecture about proper dating etiquette that would make Emily Post weep. David. Maya smiled at her reflection. Still on. Should I be worried about the lecture? Only if you consider, don't talk about dead people or sad things, unreasonable first date advice. That's actually solid advice. Right. I'm choosing to ignore it completely. See you at Giuseppe's. Giuseppe's was an Italian restaurant in the historic district, the kind of place with white tablecloths and candles that created more atmosphere than actual light. Maya arrived 5 minutes early, old habits, and found David already there, waiting outside the entrance. He'd traded his surgical scrubs for dark jeans and a light blue button-down that brought out his eyes. His hair was combed, his jaw freshly shaved, and he looked like he'd actually slept since Wednesday. The transformation was startling. "You look beautiful," he said when he saw her, and the simplicity of it, no qualifier, no subtext, made her cheeks warm. "You clean up pretty well yourself." Sophie helped me pick the shirt. She said blue was romantical. He grinned. Her word, not mine. "How is she?" "After everything?" "Good, David's expression shifted, becoming more serious. Grounded for a week, no TV, early bedtimes, and a very long conversation about stranger danger and why hiring rideshares without permission is absolutely not acceptable. He paused. "She also wrote you an apology letter. Mrs. Chen helped with the spelling, but the sentiment is all Sophie. He pulled a folded piece of construction paper from his jacket pocket and handed it to Maya. She opened it carefully. The paper was covered in carefully printed letters in purple crayon, with drawings of hearts and flowers in the margins. Dear Miss Maya, I am sorry I scared everyone. Daddy says I was very brave, but also very wrong. Miss Chen says sorry means you don't do it again. I promise I won't. Thank you for being nice to me and waiting for Daddy. You are pretty like a princess, and I hope you like Italian food. Love, Sophie. P.S. Buttons says thank you too. Maya felt her throat tighten. She folded the letter carefully and tucked it into her purse. Tell her I said thank you. And that I forgive her. I will. David gestured toward the restaurant. Shall we? Inside, they were led to a corner table with a view of the street, where street lamps cast golden pools on the wet pavement. A candle flickered between them, and Maya felt the strangeness of the moment sitting across from this man she'd met under the most chaotic circumstances, attempting something as normal as a first date. They ordered wine a Chianti that the waiter recommended with enthusiasm, and fell into that awkward silence that always followed the initial pleasantries. David broke it first. So I've been specifically instructed not to talk about sad things, but I feel like we should probably address the elephant in the room. Which elephant? There are several. He laughed. Fair point. Let's start with the biggest one. I'm genuinely sorry about Wednesday. The whole thing. If I could have scripted a worse first impression, I don't know how. You didn't make the first impression, Maya pointed out. Sophie did. And honestly, she might have better instincts than both of us. She certainly has more courage. David's expression sobered. She's been worried about me. I didn't realize how much until Wednesday. I thought I was hiding it. Well, the grief, the exhaustion, all of it. Turns out, 5-year-olds are more perceptive than I gave them credit for. Maya thought about Sophie's words. He goes into Mommy's old room and just sits there in the dark. She loves you. That's why she notices. I know, which makes it worse somehow. She shouldn't have to worry about me. She should just get to be 5. He paused, studying his wine glass. I'm breaking, Mrs. Chen's rule already, aren't I? Spectacularly. Want me to stop? Maya considered. The safe answer was yes. Change the subject. Keep things light. Maintain the pleasant fiction that they were just two people getting to know each other without the weight of grief between them. But she was tired of safe. No, she said. I think we're past the point of pretending we're normal people with normal baggage. David's smile was rueful. Normal is overrated anyway. Their food arrived risotto for her, ossobuco for him, and they ate in companionable silence for a few minutes. Then David asked, Jasmine mentioned you're divorced. How long? 2 years. Finalized 18 months ago. What happened? If you don't mind me asking. Maya twirled risotto around her fork, considering how much to share. The short version? He wanted someone warmer, more available, less married to her work. The long version? We were wrong for each other from the start, but we were both too stubborn to admit it. Until he found someone who made it obvious. He cheated with his paralegal. Very cliché. She took a bite, chewed, swallowed. The worst part wasn't even the betrayal. It was realizing he was right. I was emotionally unavailable. I was married to my work. I'd built this fortress around myself, and then I was surprised when he couldn't get in. That doesn't excuse cheating. No, but it explained it. Maya met his eyes. I told myself I was fine alone, that I didn't need anyone. And for 2 years, I almost believed it. What changed? A 5-year-old with a stuffed elephant and terrible judgment about rideshare safety. David laughed, the sound warm and genuine. She does have a gift for disrupting carefully constructed defenses. What about you? Maya asked. I know your wife died, but David set down his fork, his expression distant. She went in for what should have been routine surgery, gallbladder removal. Simple, straightforward, low risk. Except the anesthesiologist made a mistake. She had an undiagnosed heart condition, and the medication they gave her. He stopped, swallowed. She never woke up. David, I'm so sorry. The worst part was telling Sophie. She was 3.5 too young to really understand death, but old enough to know Mommy wasn't coming home. His voice went rough. She kept asking when Mommy would be back from the hospital. Every day for weeks. Is Mommy coming home today, Daddy? And I had to keep explaining that heaven wasn't like the hospital. That Mommy couldn't come back. Watching her process that. He stopped, shaking his head. Sorry. This is exactly what Mrs. Chen told me not to talk about. It's okay, I asked. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of shared loss settling between them like a third presence at the table. Can I ask you something? Maya said finally. Anything. Why did you say yes to this? The blind date, I mean. Why agree if you weren't ready? Blind date, that is mine date too. David considered the question, turning his wine glass slowly. Honestly? Because Sophie drew me a picture at breakfast one morning. It was our family. Her, me, and a stick-figure woman with dark, curly hair. When I asked who the woman was, she said, "That's the nice lady who's going to make you smile again." She'd been planning this for weeks, apparently. Listening to my conversations with Jasmine, memorizing details. He looked up at Maya. How do you say no to that kind of hope? You don't, Maya said softly. Exactly. So I said yes, fully intending to go through the motions, be polite, and then retreat back into my comfortable misery. He paused. Except you waited. Even after my daughter crashed the date and scared 10 years off both our lives, you waited. And I keep asking myself why. It was Maya's turn to consider. Why had she waited? The logical answer was concern for Sophie's safety, basic human decency. But sitting here now, looking at David's honest face, she knew it was more than that. Because Sophie asked if I ever got lonely, she said finally. And I said yes. And she looked at me like she understood exactly what that felt like we were members of the same terrible club. Maya took a breath. I've been lonely for 2 years, David. Surrounded by people, but completely alone. And then this 5-year-old shows up and sees right through me in about 30 seconds. So yeah, I waited. Because I wanted to meet the father who'd raised someone that perceptive and brave. David's expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering across his face. I'm not sure I deserve that much credit. Most days I'm just trying not to screw her up too badly. That's what all good parents think, is it? So I'm told. The waiter appeared to clear their plates, offering dessert menus with practiced enthusiasm. They ordered tiramisu to share David's suggestion, and another glass of wine. When they were alone again, David leaned forward. Okay, Mrs. Chen also said I should ask you fun questions. Get to know you beyond the trauma. So what's something you love that you don't get to do enough of? Maya thought about it. Travel. Real travel. Not business trips to hotel conference rooms. I want to see things, experience places. I haven't left the country in 5 years. Where would you go if you could go anywhere? Italy. The Amalfi Coast. I want to sit on a terrace overlooking the Mediterranean and eat pasta that someone's grandmother made and not think about billable hours or court dates. Just the view. That sounds perfect. David smiled. What about you? Besides sleep? He laughed. Music. I used to play piano. Haven't touched one in almost 2 years. Why not? Same reason I haven't done a lot of things. It reminded me of her. She loved listening to me play. He paused. But maybe that's not a good enough reason to stop anymore. The tiramisu arrived, and they shared it in comfortable silence, trading bites and small observations about the restaurant, the weather, the surreal nature of their situation. So, David said, scraping up the last bite of dessert. Second question of the evening. And I promise that's not innuendo. I need to ask you something important. Maya's heart picked up speed. Okay, would you be willing to do this again? Not just dinner, but, he gestured vaguely, this, whatever this is, knowing that I come with complications. In the fore, knowing that I come with complications. A grieving 5-year-old, a meddling nanny, a job with terrible hours, and approximately 17 tons of emotional baggage. That's a lot of baggage. It really is. Can I counteroffer? Please. I'd be willing to try, Maya said carefully, knowing that I come with my own complications, a time-consuming career, emotional walls that would make Fort Knox look welcoming, trust issues, and a tendency to work instead of feel things. That's also a lot of baggage. It really is. They looked at each other across the candlelit table, two broken people considering whether their sharp edges might somehow fit together. So we're doing this? David asked. We're trying this, Maya corrected. There's a difference. Fair enough. He reached across the table, and she let him take her hand. His palm was warm, his grip gentle but sure. For what it's worth, I think Sophie's going to be thrilled. Is that okay? Her being involved in this? It feels like a lot of pressure. She's already involved, David said. She orchestrated the whole thing. Might as well let her enjoy the results. Maya laughed. That's fair. When they left the restaurant hand in hand, stepping out into the cool November night. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets glossy and reflecting the streetlights in golden ribbons. Can I walk you to your car? David asked. I'd like that. They walked slowly, neither in a hurry to end the evening. When they reached her car, David turned to face her, still holding her hand. Thank you, he said, for giving me a chance. I know it's complicated and messy and probably doomed to be difficult. Probably, Maya agreed, but maybe worth it anyway. He smiled, and it was the first smile she'd seen from him that didn't have exhaustion or grief shadowing it. Just genuine happiness. Can I kiss you? Or is that moving too fast for a first date that's technically our second meeting? Maya pretended to consider. I think the rules are different when your daughter crashes the first date. Standard conventions don't apply. 17. Maya pretended conventions don't apply. Good point. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to change her mind. And when their lips met, it was gentle, tentative, the kind of kiss that asked questions instead of making assumptions. Maya felt something warm unfurl in her chest, something she'd thought she'd successfully buried. Hope. When they pulled apart, David was grinning like a teenager. So, same time next week? Same time next week. He waited until she was in her car, watching to make sure she locked the door's surgeon's instincts, probably before walking away. Maya drove home in a daze, feeling like the world had tilted slightly on its axis and somehow ended up in a better position. Her phone buzzed at a red light. She glanced down. Just got home. Sophie was supposed to be asleep. She was instead sitting on the stairs in her pajamas waiting to hear how it went. She says, and I quote, "Did you kiss her, Daddy? Because if you didn't, you should next time. Princesses like kissing." Maya laughed out loud in her empty car. You can tell her, mission accomplished. She just cheered loud enough to wake Mrs. Chen. Worth it. 3 months later, Harbor Lights Cafe had become their place. Every Sunday morning, without fail, the three of them claimed the corner booth where it had all started. Maya arrived first this particular Sunday, ordering her usual coffee and sliding into the familiar seat. David and Sophie appeared 5 minutes later, the little girl charging ahead while her father carried a backpack stuffed with coloring books and crayons. "Miss Maya?" Sophie launched herself at the booth, scrambling up to sit beside her instead of across. This had become the new normal, Sophie insisting on sitting next to Maya as if physical proximity could somehow cement the relationship. "Good morning, sweetheart. What are you going to color today?" "Butterflies. Mrs. Rodriguez says we're getting caterpillars next week, and we get to watch them turn into butterflies. And I'm going to name mine Princess Maya." "I'm honored." David slid into the opposite seat, looking considerably more rested than he had 3 months ago. Sleep would do that. So would having someone to share the burden of single parenthood, even in small ways. "Morning," he said, his smile warm and familiar. "Morning. Rough night?" Sophie had a nightmare. Took an hour to get her back to sleep. He didn't say it was about her mother. He didn't have to. Some things were understood now. Andre appeared with hot chocolate for Sophie and coffee for David, both prepared exactly the way they liked. "Morning, folks." "The usual?" "Please," Maya said, while Sophie colored and David scrolled through his phone, checking on a post-op patient. Maya let herself settle into the moment this strange, unexpected family ritual that had somehow become the best part of her week. It wasn't perfect. David still had nightmares about losing patients. Sophie still sometimes cried for her mother. Maya still worked too many hours and struggled to let her guard down. But they were trying, all three of them, building something new from their broken pieces. "Hey," David said suddenly, looking up from his phone. "What are you doing Thanksgiving?" Maya blinked. "I haven't really thought about it. Jasmine usually drags me to her parents' house, but I might skip this year." "Don't skip. Come to ours instead." He glanced at Sophie, who had stopped coloring to listen. "We're doing the whole thing. Turkey, stuffing, Mrs. Chen's famous pumpkin pie. It won't be fancy, and Sophie will probably convince you to watch the parade with her for 3 hours. But say yes." Sophie interrupted. "Please say yes. We can make turkey handprints and you can sit next to Daddy and it'll be so fun." Maya looked at their hopeful faces, father and daughter, wearing matching expressions of anticipation, and felt that unfamiliar warmth bloom in her chest again. "I'd love to," she said. Sophie cheered, and David's smile was worth every risk she'd taken to get here. Later, as they walked out of the cafe together, David holding Sophie's hand, Sophie holding Maya's, the three of them linked, Veronica caught their reflection in a shop window. They looked like a family. And for the first time in 2 years, instead of running from that thought, Maya let herself lean into it. Maybe safe was overrated. Maybe broken things could be mended. Maybe sometimes the family you need crashes into your life on a rainy Wednesday evening, delivered by a 5-year-old with terrible judgment and perfect instincts. Maya squeezed Sophie's hand, met David's eyes over the little girl's head, and smiled. Maybe, just maybe, this was what victory looked like. Thank you so much for staying with me through this entire journey. If you enjoyed Maya, David, and Sophie's story, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another beautiful story. Drop a comment below with your rating out of 10 and let me know where you're watching from. I love hearing from viewers all around the world. And remember, sometimes the best things in life show up when we least expect them, in the most unexpected ways. Until next time, take care of your hearts, and don't be afraid to take chances on the messy, beautiful, complicated things that might just change your life.